I think this is real life right now.
This is real life. We're happening. Okay, my name's Melanie Curtis. For those of you who don't know me, I'm psyched to be here. I love Jumptown. That sounds super weird. Can you guys hear me without this?
Yeah.
Whatever you're most comfortable doing.
Yeah, I'm not going to use the mic. So, okay, you guys all have the calendar. I'm going to start with a story. So, I went to college in Vermont, and I took an art class, and we had this sort of installation assignment or whatever, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to take my parachute and hang it up in the space and like whatever, get people to see skydiving, blah, blah. Cool, goes great, take the parachute down, I hook it back up to my rig, hand my rig to my rigger, and I've got about 100 jumps around this time, just so you know. And I get my rig back from the repack, the main's unpacked, I go unpack it, and I'm like, this feels a little weird, whatever. It's gotta be good. Cool, like, I don't have a lot of experience in this time. So I go up with my repacked main parachute, and I go for a skydive. Open my main parachute, opens great. It's a perfect parachute flying this direction. So about 117 jumps, I have my first cutaway because my parachute is attached backwards, and I probably wisely opted not to land it backwards. So cool, no worries. I learned my lesson. Quick tip from that story, of course, is if it feels or seems wrong, something's probably up. So ask that question. So then I go, 7,000 plus skydives with no incident, with no other cutaways. I mean, there's more incidents, I suppose, but no cutaways for like 7,000 more skydives. I have about 10,000 now. So I then have this experience where flying at velocity, it's cool, I have a lot of experience, yada, 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 throw out, and I have a twisted canopy. And I get it under control, so it's not diving or anything, it's not high speed, but it's twisted, and I'm like, like doing all the things, and I cannot get it untwisted. I felt very weak. I was like, right? Check my altimeter, so I'm cool. And I have another cutaway. And, it's not the most fun thing to have to use your reserve. I don't think. And anyway, about a month later, the exact same thing happened. Like almost to the exact experience in terms of cutaway happened. Where I got it righted, it was above my head, and it was twisted, and it wasn't like diving or whatever. That one was like, as soon as I started to, try to untwist it, it would start to go. So it was like another cutaway. Now, what would you guess happened to me after that? I was more nervous, what? Didn't want to jump anymore?
No.
Not really. No, but I got scared. I got scared. Right? I mean, this is a talk about fear because why talk about fear? Obviously, it's sort of the title of the talk. It's sort of the other side of safety, like the mental side of safety. So I got scared. Like I had a lot of work. I was traveling around. I had coaching to do and people to inspire and help them be happy and safe while they're skydiving. Meanwhile, I'm losing days before my jobs, freaking out. And I'm not joking you, like I was really nervous, really scared. So why do I kind of want to talk about like how do we first identify that? Right, because it's easy to say like, okay, I got scared. I had a couple cutaways, which means I had to use my reserve, which means I'm a little bit closer to, injury or death. So that's scary. But like when it can come up in us, and we don't even maybe notice it. So my first question to you guys is how do you identify fear in yourself? Any thoughts on that?
You start to question what you normally do.
Question what you normally do, so doubt, okay. Doubt, what else? Heart rate, yes, you feel like kind of your blood pumps a bit more. What else?
Hesitation.
Hesitation, so there's more sort of doubt, literal physical hesitation. Tightness of the chest, right? Anxiety, absolutely.
Literally.
I mean, I'm just talking about it, I feel it almost. You know, for me, it comes up in really, really notably in tension in my muscles. And I've learned, just as a quick tip as we go through this talk, is when I've actually trained my body that when I start to feel the physical cues of my manifestation of fear, I always take a deep breath in and then I exhale that tension that I start to feel in my physical body. So just think about that if that's how it manifests for you. That is basically one of the ways that I do it. So in talking about fear, like obviously when we're afraid, it's not as fun, and we are in theory we're more dangerous. You know, that vision narrows, right? We maybe make hesitant choices. We maybe, you know, we can screw up worse when we're afraid. Would you say that's true? So it's like it behooves us to go, okay, let's talk about how do we actually deal with it, right? Like how do we actually deal with it? So that's basically what the meat of this talk is going to be about. So, cool. First thing, what we just said. Identify your fear. Right?
Yes.
Thank you. Love it. Where are my cookies? Where's Mark? Or Mark, where are you?
I know
I need cookies. Participation cookies.
I'll give you
All right,
affirmation.
yeah. Okay, so what do you think you would do next? Right? Because like first thing, if we don't even know we're afraid, we have to kind of almost make sure we look for it. So I really think that's a big first step because it can really hide behind. We might not notice it, so look for it. Identify it first in your own physical body, your own cues, and your own experience. What would you say would be the next step? Now you know you're afraid of something. Analyze it. Okay.
And deal with it.
Deal with it. Accept it. That's cool. That's great, Trish.
To manage it.
Figure out exactly what the fear is.
All right.
Go through your fear procedure.
There is a procedure. Like it.
Cookie.
This is what we're giving you. Cookie. So yeah.
Works there.
Sean. So Sean said analyze it. Yeah, okay. So that, I wouldn't quite say it like that. What I would say is to talk about it. To start to go, as Tricia said, accept it and say, like, it's totally okay to feel this way. It's very, very normal. I mean, think about what we're doing. It has real consequences. We know this. This is why we are here today, you know? So I would suggest, as the second step, is to talk about it. Go to your trusted people. Say, here, man, dude, XYZ, ABC, what the hell, you know? Right? That's a real life example. XYZ, ABC, that happened. So why do I suggest doing that? Why would we want to talk? What's the value in going and talking about it? You realize you're not the only one, so it normalizes it.
I'm not the
It
only
takes the
one.
edge off it. What else?
Alternate viewpoint.
Understand where it's coming from.
I
Yes.
got the B. I know he probably experienced it before.
He might.
Guide me through it.
Trusted guidance. Yes, that's part of it.
Someone else probably has experience, so just like anything we do to learn from their experience and how they deal with it.
Yes, to learn tactics, right? Right? So, okay, so we're talking about it. I'm going to make sure I don't miss any of the key points.
Everyone's looking at you.
You should be looking. I don't want to miss any of the points because I can get all fired up about it. Okay. So, because it's a bit more detailed, like all of these things that we're talking about are correct. So when we're talking about it and when we're analyzing it, whether it's with ourselves in our own mind or with the people that we trust, we want to then isolate the root cause. Like, what really are we afraid of? So go back to my cutaway experience. So I have these cutaways and I end up getting freaked out. I end up having this dread experience and I'm not sure what to do. Flying high performance parachutes, I love them, they're so much fun. And I start to acknowledge, to my people like, I'm just feeling, how do I get through this thing? And for me, I ended up finding that I was afraid of having that same cutaway experience again, understandably, right? So I was like, I isolated that root cause through conversation and opening up the fear and accepting it and acknowledging it and being open with people who I trusted to help me through it. I isolated what really was I afraid of. Am I afraid of free fall? Nope. Am I afraid of the airplane? Nope. Am I afraid of other people? Yes, always, but not really in this case. You know what I mean? Thank you for laughing at that. For me, it came down to really isolating that what I was afraid of in this instance was the deployment sequence, was my parachute inflating, because I felt like I couldn't control that, And I've had thousands of skydives just fine, so it's not even that it has to be rational, right? I just was afraid of that, and that was really, really, really impinging on my skydiving experience and my ability to help people have fun and learn. It just wasn't cool. So I was really wanting to sort that out. So to me, it came down to the opening sequence. So what else? What's next? Once we isolate the root cause. Battle plan. What do you mean?
I mean, you understand what the fear is, the danger that there is to you, what the sequence will be that you will have in that situation, so that if it happens again, you have a battle.
That's right. Right. So we want to brainstorm solutions. So now I know, it's like, all right, I'm kind of freaked out by this opening sequence. And again, as I talk through this, think about it for yourselves. If you're having any anxiety right now about whatever is going on with you and your skydiving, I mean, this is life stuff too, certainly can apply to life. But like, you're brainstorming solutions. So I was like, well, okay, do I need to get my gear checked? Maybe there's a maintenance issue. Okay, maybe I don't know, maybe I try a different kind of parachute. Maybe I pull higher so that I feel like I have more time. Like really just sort of brainstormed that particular fear point. So that's the next step, is to brainstorm solutions around your particular concern. Does that make sense? Yeah, everyone following? Putting your brains on yourselves.
What was that? Okay, got it.
Okay, so we have a list of solutions. We've brainstormed. We've thought it through. We've talked with our trusted people. We've identified it in ourselves. What then?
Make a plan and back, battle plan, and then follow through on those steps.
Follow through. I love it. Yes. Yes, you want to test the solutions. You want to really say, okay, I'm going to choose the things that I have brainstormed and pick the ones that feel most applicable to the situation, or feel what are like the ones I want to try. Maybe it's all of them, maybe it's a couple, maybe it's one. Either way, you want to test the solutions, right? The idea is to get through the issue at hand, is to get back to that place where we feel good and we feel confident and we feel safe, so we can obviously best help others, best enjoy our time skydiving and be safest for everyone. Cool? So, what do you think I did with my parachute situation? Okay. Follow me. Yeah. So, but what? Any guesses on what I did? Like, because it wasn't just that I changed canopies, which I did do. But that
You're packing or your body position too.
Yeah, I definitely, I considered, and this is sort of very specific to my experience, obviously, so it's sort of guessing game, but basically I opted to try other parachutes. So I have a katana, and then I also have a stiletto, and I remember in my career, I really, really loved, I have thousands of jumps on stilettos. And I love them. You know, yeah, okay, people say, oh, Spinetto, Spinetto. And I, by the way, I am just to say that nickname is an old thing that came from it because it was the first elliptical parachute. People did not really know how to handle those openings, so a lot of cutaways happened. It's an amazing parachute. Sorry, that's a plug, but whatever. So because the opening was quick, it was trusted, and it was a lower performance parachute to the one that was currently scaring me. Even though, again, I had plenty of experience with it just fine. But for me, in that instance, that's what got me to a place where I could really enjoy skydiving again, where I could really enjoy saying yes to a coaching job and really enjoy getting up in the morning and going there. And that made a huge, huge difference because that fear really took such an impact on my energy. So anyway, cool, that makes sense? One thing I will add is in the testing of the solution, so for me it was the multiple things. So we might have multiple ideas. What would you guess is the last thing that you want to do in the course of identifying the fear, talking about it with your people, isolating the root fear, the actual specific fear, brainstorming solutions, and then testing the solutions? What do you think is the last thing?
Ignoring it.
Picking whatever you feel most comfortable with to build confidence back
Ding,
up.
ding, ding.
Cookie.
Cookie. Cookie. Austin said picking what you feel most comfortable with, which is basically trust your gut. Make the intuitive choice for you, because only you can then go back to your own feelings, and it goes back to the top of how do you feel? How are you identifying the fear? If the fear is still there, if it's not significantly diffused, you likely need something more or something different. You know what I mean? So even jumping the katana, it's great. No big deal. It's totally fine. But I just didn't like it as much. The katana's very snivelly, longer opening, and that wasn't working for me. It was even a larger parachute. And I was like, no. I was happier with a smaller parachute with a different style of opening. So that was the solution for me in that case. And I still jump a stiletto to this day, and I probably will for ever, but you never say never. It's just awesome. So what are you guys thinking as I say all this stuff? Thoughts?
Where'd you find out it was that
I mean, I think it's just that canopies sometimes have weird openings. You know, I don't think I identified anything really, other than it happened, and then I didn't know how to not have it happen. You know.
Were you a trash packer or a neat packer?
I'm a neat packer. Yeah.
A lot of times people
I'm a neat
get
packer.
they pack and have it changed after a couple of months.
Yeah. Well, that's true. You know, that's another thing. So, okay. So ongoing. This is sort of my final thoughts in terms of ongoing, is to recognize, to make this a patterned thing for yourself. Like to recognize, it might, again, look for it when you're not, it could be like that boiled frog, that dull build. So just ask yourself every so often, am I cool? Am I cool? You know, recognize those physical twinges. Look for them. Okay, what else? Yep, making conscious choices, right. So making conscious choices to the things that you do take on. So make conscious choices toward the things that you're learning. Yeah. I write down dorky things, I'm sorry. But working on, like the whole idea of working on our fears, and I mentioned this already as well, is it's a road to long-term participation in our sport, because it really can take you out. Because if you're not having fun, you probably won't keep doing it. You know, and part of the thing that we love about skydiving is being together. You know, and enjoying it together. So we want that enjoyment to continue, and part of that is making sure that we're managing our own mental and emotional state. So, final thoughts would be these. Fear is totally normal, and it's often not talked about because you feel maybe uncool if you think weird things or feel weird things. It's not weird, it's totally normal. Secondly, you have a systematic plan. It might feel like you don't know how to do it because fear is sort of so emotionally charged. It can be like, I don't know how to figure this out. And so just remember that you can work through it very systematically. You just have to decide to do so. And then lastly, and I just said this, like we really are in this together. So like really if you don't know what to do, even if you forget your plan, like drop me an email. You know, I'm happy to help. And this is not a plug, but really, melaniecurtis.com. Seriously, email me if you ever have a question. If you're like having a struggle, like I really would be happy to respond and reiterate these things and help you through them. Okay? Gosh. What else? Yeah. I think that's it. Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
When you were talking, I was thinking about my fear trigger. And my fear gets triggered over different things. While I'm thinking about my fear trigger, I'm thinking about my fear procedures. Elaborate as to what they are and what I do. It's all personal, but just cause me, you help me to think about what triggers my fear, what conditions are going on.
Yeah.
And for me, it's hard to get that feeling within myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's called exit 16
Yeah.
butterflies.
Well, and it's good. And that, you're welcome. And that's interesting too. Like that physical cue is such a huge part of it because it's so most of the time going to be a physical cue. Like I don't know how many of you have had the experience yet, or how much, like who's experienced, who's not. Like I can sort of guess when I look around and know people, but when you have that intuitive read of something's up, trust that. Really trust that.
Intuition.
Seriously, because like we spend a shit ton of time in that airplane. When we hear the like harmonic change, you know, you're like something's up, or you feel some weird movement. You might not have known that that was a weird movement, but your sense of your awareness, sort of intuitive body awareness, really understands and reads that. So that can be really, really useful to get good practice developing. Any questions? That's all I have for my blah blah blah. Al.
Now, what can you do, however, when it's not the jumps that you're making that are causing the anxiety, but it's actually maybe the loss of some super good friend? I mean, I was getting, when I worked for USDA, I got the fatality reports every single week, and skydiving hadn't grown yet or anything else. And that started having it had a psychological effect on me to the point where, you know, it was stressing me out. How do you deal with that? I mean, you can identify one issue, and you can identify the issue psychologically of losing friends, but what kind of action would you put for something like that, or would you suggest you think about?
That's a great question. And that was part of my situation with my cutaways also. I'm glad you brought that up because I actually forgot to mention that. But yeah, that was part of it. And that is obviously super, unfortunately, something we have to deal with. Okay, so I think it's all different, right? Like, I don't know if there's anyone in this room that hasn't probably lost someone. If you haven't, I'm glad for you. That's a thing that I think is it's very personal, I think, of what that triggers. Like, if that triggers your own fear of severe injury or death, right? Like, that's fucking real. That's scary. So I was just talking about this with some people out there, talking about how my safety bubble, or my bubble of what I'm cool to do in skydiving, expands. And it's not to say that, like, because I have no interest personally of, like, jumping off, you know, doing base jumping. Like, that's not something I have interest to pursue. It's totally whatever. That's partly because it falls outside of my risk, like, my risk quotient. So, like, I'm not comfortable with that. But everyone has to make their own choices as to what activities, skydive specifically, they will go on. You know, like, I've heard it tons of times when people are like, oh, I won't go on that jump because that person's on there. You know, like, some person might show themselves as being a pretty unsafe young yahoo. And I say that, and I apologize to all of you young people here. Don't be that guy.
Oh, you young yahoos.
Don't be that guy. But really, again, the reason I'm sort of going on and on is that the specifics of how we determine that are infinite. Like, do I want to go, for instance, I've learned that I don't do tube jumps. And by tube jumps, I mean the kind where you lean over and you grab the harness and then you, like, roll out. I don't do those out of otters anymore. People have asked me all the time. I'm like, nope, won't. And I'm getting paid to organize, and I will not do it because I've seen people get hurt so many times. It's not like they're going to get killed or anything. It's just, I know that's outside of my scope. I'll happily coach you to hopefully achieve that safely and enjoy. Inevitably, they set up too far back in the door, and I'm like, there they go. They get their bruise. Hopefully, they learn. But anyway, so I'm rambling on and on, but only to make the point of, if you do lose a friend and you get sort of shocked and rocked into fear of just grand, gratuitous, I don't know if I'm safe enough to do this, bring it back to the situation at hand and determine situation by situation whether that is within your scope of risk and whether you're okay. And if you do that, you can actually take yourself out of this massive fear of, oh my God, I could die. And you'll be like, no, I'm okay. I know enough in this situation that I know I'll be okay. And if you don't feel that way, then I would pause. I would pause and wait till you feel comfortable. Any other questions?
When you think about using visualization to manage fear, for instance, in your example, visualizing excellent deployments and the not so excellent deployments.
I think it's smart.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, I mean, even if we're talking about it, not fear of death and injury, but we're talking about even performance anxiety. Like, it makes a difference, for sure. I think definitely having the plan for the experience that you are the perfect execution of the emergency procedure. And Trish, you were talking about getting people in a hanging harness. Like, get in there. Totally get in that thing. It's fun and it's good. But yeah, visualization, I would highly recommend both. If you just have to make the time and put the effort in to do it. Anyone else? Yeah.
Physiologically, I've noticed that when people go into the fear mode, the first thing they do is hold their breath. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the worst thing you can do, whether you're skydiving, scuba diving, fighting, making love. You're losing you're building up CO2.
You're not supposed to hold it? I always hold my breath.
Well, yeah.
That's why I only last a minute and a half.
The immediate quick fix is to take several deep breaths. And that clears. I mean, when it's a quick reaction situation, we have to correct the problem instantaneously. A couple of quick breaths that lowers the CO2 level, brings up the O2 level, and the brain unfogs itself.
Yeah. Two things I think that you said were really insightful or valuable is the breathing to, again, like sort of reiterating the breathing to remove the tension from the body, but also the whole concept of experience of practicing, you know, like really making an effort to practice the things that, you know, like there's something I always say this, but I say it in coaching, and I mean it not to kind of sound, whatever, I'm copying too much. I say it's really fun to be good. And I don't say that about myself. I say that as to people that are learning and growing. It's really fun to be good because you have confidence that you're going to be good. So it's like performance anxiety is so much less. You know, so again, it's like fear and performance anxiety is not as dangerous per se, but it's certainly still fun. You know, and so just the other, I mean, we could talk about this for endlessly, but yeah, practicing and really making a point to get excellent basic skills, that removes a lot of fear, even when you're trying new disciplines, you know? So, anything else?
I just thought it was interesting to bring up that if you identify a fear and you identify a behavior modification in yourself or a gear modification or whatever it is that takes you out of your fear situation, to have confidence in that. And I'll give you an example. Anybody that's ever jumped with me has made fun of me because I have as many altimeters on my physical body that I can wear. And the reason is I was a low-time jumper, and we went to Quincy back in like 2000, and I decided with 50 jumps that it was a good idea to be the middle person in a raft jump. And we dirt dived it 1,000 times. It was 9 of us, 3 people floating on each side of the raft to hold it steady, 3 people in the raft. It launched so smooth that we couldn't believe it. And then somebody in the raft, Derek Landry, decided that it was a good idea because we were so stable to stand up and surf said raft. And when he did that,
Surf said raft.
all the support jumpers on the right side of the raft. So we had planned the exit, and the people in the raft would get out of the raft, and everybody else would hold it stable, and well, that didn't happen anymore. Everybody thought I had gotten out of the raft, but I was in the raft. And anybody that's ever been in a raft, as it descends, it deflates, and I ended up wrapped up inside the raft with absolutely no idea how high off the ground I was, and I was in the burble of the raft, and none of my altimeters were working. And I had 50 jumps, or 55 jumps, or however many it was. And so I curled up in a ball, because it's the only way. It was like having a raft that was deflating in water, like you just couldn't get out of it, and I rolled out of it, and literally had no time to know where I was. This was before audibles, and I just pitched, and I ended up opening at like 2,200 feet, which for 55 jumps was like the most horrifying experience of my life. But since then, I have 4 altimeters, both analog and digital, in my ears, on my wrists, on my chest, and I will take the ribbon for the rest of my skydiving career that I have ridiculous amounts of altimeters on, because it takes me out of my fear bubble and makes me comfortable jumping. And there are some people here that have gotten on the plane without one and had to borrow one. Being confident in whatever that modification is to keep you in your happy place, and knowing that, yeah, you might get your balls busted about it, but that it's fine anyway, because it keeps you mentally
I
in the
said
game.
this, and I say it again, I'll say it, always say it. It's always coolest to be safe. Safety is always coolest. And yeah, like learn from other people's mistakes too. Don't go and jump out and get a raft wrapped around you to learn that you need an altimeter. Let's just take it from this story. Let's just do it from this story. But is there anything else before? And again, we can keep, you can keep asking me throughout the day, but thank you.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.